It's a challenge.
You put it in there and you donate just the interest to the spirit.
Correct. Yeah, no, I'm saying. If you need it, yeah.
The whole, yeah, but the whole class action thing, they want to.
Yeah, I don't see that.
And then it's tax.
But yes,
I just want to. Public radio. Yes. Yeah.
So are you attending the mediation?
No, we have 3 lawyers from our firm doing that. We don't need it.
Like creepy to say.
That's one. Well, it sounds fun anyway. It sounds really good.
Yeah.
I set up $1.
How quaint. It sounds like a very romantic kind of business.
Right, no, to me, that's a.
Right. Yeah, it was supposed to start at 12, which is a little bit delayed, but I would be so happy then if it did. So, yeah. Very cool.
Well, it took a long time. It started from,
Dennis, you can kick it off. Is everybody okay with starting the training while you're still eating?
Yeah.
You can take notes. So for those of you who haven't met Dennis Rudin, he is the head of, what is the name of your company?
I'm a senior VP with BWF.
Super. Well, I'll let you introduce yourself. And we want to thank you very much for coming and helping us get trained. Because we all are in this business as fundraisers, but we are full spectrum of those with experience and those without experience, and those with a little bit of experience. And so all the guidance we can get is highly valued.
Great being back with this group. You expect to come to San Francisco and be cold, but since it's hot outside, we made it cold inside. So, this hardly ever happens in the Dallas area. I think the low is 52 degrees. Playing the Texas OU game in the Cotton Bowl, it's like 68 degrees at kickoff. In any event, thank you. I'm with BWF. We have been your partner and execute this fundraising campaign. Our company is based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. As I mentioned, I live in the Dallas area. We have consultants now all over the country. Celebrating our 40th anniversary of been at it a while. From traditional campaign council, what I do, but we also get involved now in different aspects of the patient systems and operations, prospect development, prospect research, strong analytics team. So we feel like we can bring about anything to raise money, often that involves the campaign. So as everyone here knows, you are still in the silent phase or the pre-public phase. That's $100 million campaign as a working goal. That in no way limits you in what you can raise. But if $100 is going to be the goal, we recommend that you have at least 60% of that number secured before you enter the public phase. So Eric and the team, David, others are working really hard to try to get that. And so today we want to talk about what role can you play to help get the campaign help the campaign. So I've got some slides that we'll go through, and then a couple of different times we'll pause and break into smaller groups and have some discussion. But before we dive in here, I'm interested in anyone who wants to voice it. What do you want to get out of our conversation today? What do you want to know that you don't feel like you have a good grasp on now? Yes.
The very basics. What's the easiest way to ask people for money? There has to be some formula, but I don't know what it is.
Okay. Yes.
Kind of the same thing, but how to do it and what to say.
Who am I talking to?
So you look on your contact list and you see the name and then you push the button.
How do you get people to a higher level?
Those are good. Those are good. Well, let's kind of ease into the content here. First thing, let's talk a little bit about philanthropy as a whole and kind of where the money comes from. Here, you can advance the slide. One more. Okay, start with a little quiz. What source provides the most philanthropic support? How many say corporations? How many say foundations? How many say individuals? How about individuals through their estate plans or planned giving? So those of you who said individuals, and I think that was the majority, your majority were correct. Because the year over year, the overwhelming majority of giving comes from individuals. And then when you add in bequests, the red slice of the pie, another 9%. So that's also coming from individuals, right? They just are no longer with us, but they made those decisions as individuals. So that's 73%. And then in that blue foundation space, that's a little bit misleading because there are a lot of individual gift decisions in that piece of the pie too, because that includes things like donor advised funds and family foundations where the decisions are often made by a single individual or a small group. That's where the giving comes from. Next, what percentage of giving goes to the sector that
D.
27%? Here's some voices for D. D. All right, it is 13. See, the religion slide is still the most with 26%, but that's been steadily going down. I remember when I first started doing this work in the early 80s, that was approaching 40%. So education is getting a healthy percentage, and that's really helped by gigantic gifts to academic medical centers and big public research universities. There. So. Off of camera here for those of us. So this very busy pyramid shows that the higher up you go in the pyramid, starting at the top with principal giving, requests and plan gifts, that increases as the donor commitment increases. And so starting with very basic things like identifying people. You don't really have a relationship with them yet. They're just names on the list. Identified. The more information people get, the more they become interested, the more they become involved. And you hear really high-level donors often talk about the gifts that they're making. They don't just view them as gifts; they are investments. And so it's a process, and it takes a lot of steps along the way, and a lot of people being involved. But that's kind of how we look at that. Very often, you hear about fundraising in classic 5-step approach, and starting with identification, qualification. Just because someone looks like they have the capacity to make a sizable gift doesn't mean they will, doesn't mean they have interest in doing that. So that's where qualification becomes really important. And that's very often the job of somebody like Robin or somebody like Liz, who are frontline development officers. They may find this name, they get really excited about it, they secure a meeting with somebody, and it's obvious from that meeting that this person isn't going to be a major gift prospect after all. Maybe they're not philanthropic. I think about a third of the population is just not philanthropic. So that's a really good skill you or a development officer can learn, is to spot people who just aren't philanthropic. A question I like to ask people early on in a relationship is, of all the things, what things do you prioritize when you give money away? And if people stumble over that answer, that's a pretty good indicator that they're not giving to anything. And like when we do a feasibility study for a campaign, so the way they answer that is also kind of an indicator of where you might think they would consider investing in the campaign. So once you qualify, you move to the cultivation stage. Begin to develop, continue to develop that relationship, continue to provide them with information, get them more involved in the life of the school and the activities and the programs that and then if that continues on in a positive way, then you get to the solicitation phase. And we're actually asking them to consider a gift, consider an investment in the school. And then if that's successful, then that gets into stewardship, making sure that they're thanked appropriately, that they're recognized appropriately, that they feel like their gifts are truly making an impact. And so if all of that is done correctly, it's sort of start anew and can skip a couple of steps if somebody has made a gift. Now here's something, you may have seen this before. This is something that's really changed in the years that I've been doing this. You just think about a successful campaign with 80% of the money would come from 20% of the gifts. And now it's more like 90% comes from 10% or less. And there's a couple of things that drive that. Number one is just the staggering amount of wealth that's been created in this country over the past 40, 50 years. And so a lot of people who have created wealth or have benefited from the creation of wealth are turning to this plan. So that's why you see gifts of $50 million, $100 million being made. Was unheard of in the as far back as 40 years ago. I think there had been one gift ever made of $100 million before. Now it's almost a weekly occurrence. So what's happened there is fundraisers like me, when I did it as a practitioner, not a consultant, and Eric and others who work in it day to day, they said, I might have better success getting to $100 million with a handful of really large gifts than chasing hundreds of $5,000 and $10,000 gifts. So it's creating sort of what I call an efficiency model at the top of that gift pyramid. So now it's more common to see half of the money coming to you. And then, like I said, the other coming. So when you think about major gift, yeah, Tom.
Is that an argument against trying to increase our participation rate?
Participation rate has been debated as a metric that should even be used. And everybody chases the US News rankings. And that was the one ranking, that was the one metric in that ranking that had to do with development or with advancement work, because it was supposed to be a proxy for alumni satisfaction. All right, if you're satisfied as an alum, then you're giving. Well, that's got a lot of weaknesses to it. So US News has actually taken that out of the calculation going forward, because development folks and others have been making an argument against it for a long time. So they finally relented and removed it from the calculation. Does that mean you shouldn't be trying to get as many alumni as possible to give? No, but you shouldn't use a lot of intensive personal time, staff time chasing that. You can do it through other means. Giving Day is one example, because you can use inexpensive forms of trying to drive people to make a gift on Giving Day. So we strongly encourage that. But just to chase that in and of itself as a metric.
Because we've had that debate in this foundation about, oh, well, Virginia has this, 68%, 70% participation rate. Why are we so far behind? But if 2% of the donors are giving 50% of the dollars, it seems.
Especially in a campaign setting, that chasing those. So major gift fundraising is a function of the right person being involved, asking the right prospect, asking for the right amount, and at the right time, in support of the right idea. So you got to get a lot of things right to have success, right? And there's no one answer. David can't solicit everybody in the campaign, right? Eric can't solicit everybody. The gift officers can't solicit everybody. So it becomes a factor of taking each individual prospective donor and coming up with a specific strategy that tries to answer those questions on the front end. So if you can get it right off the front end, you have a better chance of success on the back end. So what motivates donors to make major gifts? Not any one thing. Sometimes there's an emotional deal. You see that very often in hospital fundraising, grateful patient fundraising. There's an emotional appeal. Or if you watch these, some organizations spend a lot of time and money trying to tug at your heartstrings by showing you pictures of abused animals or children that are not getting enough to eat. And so sometimes that's a motivator for donors. Other times it's a shared mission or a vision. In this case with the law school. I like where the school is headed. I can see myself in that and I want to be a part of it. Sometimes it's a specific project. Say it's a building project. Sometimes that's really motivating to people, and they can see something tangible come out on the other side of that. Sometimes a different type of project. Okay, you can ask the question. Okay, what happens? This has really negative downside if we don't do this. Sometimes that's what we do. And related to that, a sense of urgency. There's a lot, you don't fall into this category, but there are some small colleges in this country that are really struggling. You know, some are even closing, and there's a pretty dire prediction that something like 20% to 25% of very small colleges that are in existence are facing an existential moment next decade. So that's kind of a two-edged sword on that sense of urgency. Yeah, it's urgent that we fix this, or we don't exist anymore. But yet, people also want to support something that's going to be a winner. You know? So there aren't many days that I'm not on some campus. First 30 years of doing this, I was working on a campus. Last 10, I've been doing it as a consultant. I know this, Leo, would you agree with this statement? We are very, very good at thinking of things to spend other people's money on. There is no limit. There is no limit to the number of great ideas that can be generated on a campus, on an institution of higher ed campus. What we're not so great at always is listening to what people want to do, want to get involved in, and want to ultimately invest in. So the key in securing a gift is trying to find that intersection of what interests the donor with what are programs and priorities for the school, right? And Eric, you know, I think everybody probably knows this. What's the number one priority of Dean Fagan?
Well, in terms of type of gift, we want to increase our endowment. And then in terms of where the gifts are designated, the top two priorities are scholarship and professorship. Scholarship, so we can attract and retain the highest performing students. Professorship, so we can attract and retain the most notable faculty, which goes a long way for our reputation, both in terms of attracting students and also in terms of our reputation with other law school deans and just the alumni community at large.
And most donors can at least identify with the need for scholarships. You know, maybe they benefited when they were in law school or as undergrads. Maybe they benefited from scholarship support. So they have an easier time. Most people have an easier time relating to that need than other things. Professorships, that's a little trickier. People don't automatically understand what a professorship even is. And so that may be, it may not be, but it may be a tougher slog for you in having that conversation with somebody about why that's important. Leo, I hate to pick on you, but you've been here so long and served as dean as well. Talk about why professorships and endowed faculty positions in general are important.
Well, for the institution, they're important because they raise the visibility of the institution. Law school, after all, is an academic enterprise, and to the extent that it's popular, it's academics. It's good for the school.
Have a question, John?
Yeah, sorry.
Not a question, more of a comment when you talked about the notion of scholarship and supporting students to get the best students. I mean, there is a disconnect with a vast number of the alums at Hastings, because many of us back in the 70s and 80s paid very little to have to go to school. So there's education, you know, there's I think a significant number, I mean, the older, the more seasoned alums who probably have the most money to offer up don't relate to that unless there's education. I mean, it cost me $350 a semester to go to Hastings in the mid-1970s. Unbelievable.
So that's where sessions like this are important, and you know, Eric can provide you with talking points.
Right.
If you're in a conversation with somebody and they don't understand how expensive it is these days to go, armed with those talking points. Good point. So here are 4 rules of cultivation. Number 1, it takes time. So you need to be willing to put in the time that it takes. Fundraising is a contact sport. It takes you and a willingness to be engaged with peers and with others. You can't just go off half-cocked and have somebody get right out of the gate. It takes planning, it takes research, it takes a look at profit, what are other things that they support, to try to formulate the best plan for solicitation. It takes flexibility and creativity. Little subline says, when you've seen one donor, you've seen one donor. So there are lots of different ways to make a gift that people don't even necessarily know about. You know, even something as basic as if you have a choice to make a gift between writing a check or transferring stock that you may have bought years ago at a low cost basis, and now it's worth a lot more, that's a better asset to you than writing a check, because you bypass capital gains on that if you were to sell it otherwise. A lot of people don't even know that. So don't ever assume that people, I worked with a volunteer years ago. He was one of our top volunteers in this campaign that we were working on. And we would occasionally talk about this or that prospect, and we talk about, okay, have they considered an estate gift as well as an outright gift? What's the best form of giving? And he would tend to say, you know, these are wealthy people. They know all of this. They have good advice. They get good advice. And that was kind of a running argument, because that's not always the case. So don't assume it. So there's relationship building and cultivation are very closely related, but they're not the same thing. You can build a relationship with someone and not have any intent on cultivating them for a gift. But it's very hard to cultivate someone for a gift without building the relationship. So you see some of the elements that are associated with each one of those. A quote from Melinda Gates. And I tell this story, and some of you may have heard me tell it in a previous session, but I was doing a feasibility interview a few years ago for a university in this state, and was interviewing this couple who had given over $100 million to another institution in the state, not the one I was in. And I said, sort of at the first of the interview, I said, you know, congratulations on your philanthropy. And I said, even by today's standards, giving almost $200 million away to one cause, one institution, what made you and your husband decide to do that? She said, well, Alzheimer's has touched both sides of our family. And so that's something that's a passion of ours, is trying to find treatments and ultimately a cure for Alzheimer's. And so we became convinced that this institution that we supported had assembled a talented enough group of scientists that if we made that level of investment, they could create the world's leading center for brain research. So that's how they got from there to there. And that's sort of what Melinda Gates is getting at in how she approaches her philanthropy. So this is sort of a drill down from, you know, the importance of legal education. You know, everybody in this room could probably explain why a sound legal education is important. So that's way up here. And next is the importance of this particular institution and the role it plays in legal education. Next level is the importance of the current priorities that David has, primarily the scholarships and the endowed faculty positions. And then the importance of specific projects. Maybe it's a specific a professorship in a specific discipline. And then finally, the importance of an individual gift. So bringing that down, bringing that conversation down to the base level of what is driving an individual donor to involve and hopefully make a gift. 80% of your job is listening. We're gonna look at some questions here in a little bit that you can ask people and be attuned to listening to them. We're gonna practice a little bit here in a little bit on sharing your own vision, why you're involved, what's the outcome of achieving your vision, and then inviting someone to join you in supporting the school. And then let them ask you the questions about what they're about. So again, that's where it really helps to get with Eric or a team member before you have a visit with someone, and have as many facts as you possibly can so that you're able to answer questions that they might have of you. And don't be afraid to say, I don't know the answer to that, but I'll get it for you. I'll get it for you as quickly as I can. So here's some sample questions. You know that not everybody that's a graduate of this school is a practicing attorney. But if they are, maybe how they settled on a career in the law or in whatever they're doing. Second one is another way you get at whether or not they're even philanthropic. What's the most meaningful gift you've made? Why? How can we get you more involved? Here's where you speak from a position of strength because you already are involved. How can we get you more involved? What would you like to accomplish with it? You get deeper into a conversation and talking about a specific thing with someone. If we could figure out with you how to make that happen, would you consider this gift of $100,000? And are you ready to move forward? And if the answer to that is yes, then that's where Eric and the team come in, draft a gift agreement, get the gift closed. What do donors want to hear? What are you raising money for and why? So we've already talked a little bit about what those top level things are. What are the priorities? Why are they important? What's the urgency? How will my donation be used? And that can be a conversation totally up to the donor. We spent a little time last time I was here talking about the difference between endowed funds and non-endowed funds. Some people don't want to give to endowment, and they have specific reasons for that. But if they're open to making a gift, but they don't want it to be an endowed gift, you can assure them that the support will flow to deserving students. It's just not endowed. And then what's the impact of my donation? Anyway, that's where Eric and the team. All right. So next we're gonna do this twice. I want you to get in small groups. How many do we have on? Did we end up just two? Just two. Okay, that's easy enough. Then pair the two that are on Zoom together, and then everybody else. How about you break off into like groups of three? Just kind of find a spot where you can talk and be heard. And here's what I want: advance. Share with each other these things. How has the school changed your life? What impacted you while you were a student? What are your top 3 to 5 points of pride about the school? Why do you support the school with your time, talent, and treasure? So break into groups, take notes, and then let's do that for about 15 minutes. And then we'll come back and ask anybody who's comfortable sharing that and what you learned from those people in that process. So sit back at about 10 after.
Something happy.
Yes.
I don't know who's gonna spend that much time in here.
Yes.
Looks like Rihanna might be joining us. Maybe
Oh,
she
okay,
can-
good. Maybe she can give us the,
Identify.
Okay. Because you wanted an extra one, right?
Yes. And then you.
So oh my gosh, just for you to be there. Yes, yes.
Honest to God truth. They introduced me to 3 or 4 different groups.
Well, it's given me, certainly it's given me personal time.
It's very.
And then where you're thinking of applying, for example, the OCT, Washington, DC said, and you get into history. Because they had the person to learn. We're into 65.
Well, naturally, when I first got involved.
No, I'm not.
That it is. Based on my resources.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. You're up.
Yeah, lots of what surprises it You changed my life. I'm sorry. Yeah. I think it's so close. But they could have said it's not.
Right.
No gym, single tall. Are very, very.
And the
huge.
National advocacy program.
It's already gone.
Have a memory like an elephant. They will never forget.
And if an annual gift was established, you would think somebody would be administering a gift every year. If it's.
Everybody does it. I'm not gonna do it.
Right.
This Marco.
That's a gift. That's why it's doing the tuition stewardship. I wasn't
Getting
complaining.
that
So, I mean, I thought
touchy
it's-
feely.
Even then, I mean, it was. Forgotten about it.
Yeah,
And it wasn't until we just started talking about stewardship that I remembered.
I don't, but I know. I gotta listen.
Oh, that's good.
I haven't started this list.
I
5,000.
I talked to them about considering giving, like, you know, like people can't. But they still get paid. And I asked them if they would donate that. Correct, yeah, exactly. But a couple of them did. I mean, they were very successful. But yeah. All right. How, I think it's, do we want to go through all? Sorry, how is?
Actually, this is for my,
Yeah.
I was just sort of, I think I was thinking this, I did come from a lower middle class. So that is basically different for some people than others who grew up and never to a lawyer.
Difference would be someone who's.
So that.
Wasn't his campaign like $7 million or something ridiculous?
Last time I learned. I was, now.
Yeah. Although I will say that a lot of people like.
And then the last time I had custody, it was about 7 months. And I decided I was going to law school in San Francisco.
But I think you just talking to someone who went to like Cal Western and stuff, the opportunities are different.
Yeah.
I said I was just gonna go.
Get success here and then. I mean.
And then I, I lived out in Fifth Avenue, so I always kept the school in flip-flops and shorts. Cause I knew I could get school right.
I think it was one of our five processes, but then in my.
Right. But if you look at the faculty now, it's like the absolute.
I actually love
I
this.
just prepared that meeting, like, every now. Oh, it's.
Oh, I mean, well, professors,
I had the best experience.
Did you?
Yeah.
And you were sent back to the issues there.
Whichever it was, and I actually wrote. I
I also had the worst grades of my life.
I would say that.
My first
From going
introduction.
in, I had a test on my choice. Wow. Oh, okay, all right. I just skimmed it. I didn't have to.
No questions. That was my introduction to the 65.
Of course, when you said you have time, I'll do it. I mean, right. You always get back. Yeah, I love the energy of service.
I think one of the things. You talked to the professors, how what you had to do while you were.
Right? It's just really a nice relationship, so I hope that can work back.
And.
Anyway.
The backgrounds.
I also think, I like that these things, they're just, a lot of culture go out into your lives. You know, where, for second year here, actually, it was a real working school.
Right.
So I think we were both good friends with.
Some were seen, they'll have the bias of silver.
That was,
I mean,
that was great.
I had this space
Yeah.
if you wanted me to resign.
I enjoyed learning, but I was, but still, it was interesting. Stuff I would not have.
And so I was reading the words.
But I think probably.
Wasn't really used to
Yeah, specific for independence, like what I'm going into, so.
Well, thing I was telling you before.
Arthur.
Highlights for me.
Yeah, I'm like so grateful.
And
for
yet
the
you,
opportunity.
and yet you have loyalty.
I mean, it was gladly talked to you after, you know, invite them to coffee.
I've never talked to professors, I mean, it's like I did with boards. I didn't have to back then. I can't remember, but it's in email. Yeah. I know, sometimes.
They didn't know how.
Well, I mean,
Well, I think a lot of these.
although it was, I guess indirectly because
I couldn't serve people.
That's always, that's always. And we get it. And also something like one of that first one.
and like I was just really weird the coffee eating like.
But I think like I do remember showing down.
Really?
Like I remember the first time I met Kathleen. Or women who was gonna give me. So that's what I got. Turn that around, kind of come into like some law firm.
I asked him.
Dodgers game, and then Jerry meeting.
That way of.
Why do you want a woman's?
What? Jury number, you know what I mean? And I remember like.
I was answering. It's rather.
So she.
So you're
class.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, yeah, that's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Learning more about the law and different. Oh, I'm sure.
Okay, I know. So now
But
it's.
as I got to know you, so what impacted me most was
I had not, I was more, I felt like I was more polished by then. Like, I felt like I was like,
Your man, he was amazing. You
I
know,
just went to my wife's birthday last week.
my dad was a
I stumbled into doing the Jessup Internet. So we went to Houston.
Yes, visual plan. Exactly.
And you know, myself and my partner had 12 slides. So there with and I had one of those scary in Maria, and then the consumer reporting, consumer Tom. I used him as an expert witness. So it took me years to see everybody. Had to have been somebody who's.
Yeah. So anyway, so I learned.
I know that you didn't know.
I know, I can't.
No. It's impossible.
And I did most of my research.
Yeah, it's too bad, actually, but it's very understandable.
So my,
3 to 5 top points. Right, that was. I don't wait until I came to this thing. And the clinics.
Well, for me, we had first year practice. maybe second year.
But not really gonna help them.
I remember
Yeah, but I haven't even been to that. Oh, yeah, no, what I have last night.
So there was an assembly room where you had to assemble.
Yeah, here's people are in Central.
That's exciting.
That's how they knew everybody got one. I think it was like, they were like 20 bucks.
It would have been more
I
exciting.
realized I
if we had a
graduated
place to.
500 other students, but still, this is the Bay Area, there's millions of people, a lot of
Oh,
lawyers. That's a real.
I remember feeling very unsatisfied.
It was a story, right? There was 5 or 6.
There was also the Dan White incident. People were afraid to touch it because
Seriously,
yes.
it's amazing.
That was me. Not staying in touch. And so then trying to get somebody to get like.
Okay, we about ready to have some discussion around these?
So that's how we have for funders.
That's a great story.
All right, who wants to share? Let's hear some examples from that first question. How has UC Law San Francisco changed your life?
It's changing now. So we had highly positive, dismal, and moderate experience at UC Hastings. All of them were different. But all of us, the 3 of us, ended up later attributing earlier experiences at Hastings, either for the positive experiences they were at the time, or later being grateful for the foundation that it provided, but it was a dismal, miserable experience. One person was active in moot court, so they were fully engaged. Another person on a law review, totally isolating and alienating. So different experiences could still lead to a positive gratitude for the foundation that they got at the school.
10 years later, it could all be rightly considered.
When you're too close to it, it just.
Yeah, my wife went to law school and I think she would say something very similar. What she got out of it. What else, Leo?
Just one point, and I don't want to breach any group confidences, but going to law school allowed our prospect to persuade his future parents-in-law that he wasn't the ne'er-do-well they initially perceived him to be. So huge change in his life.
Now, the two of us talked about how getting a law degree was sort of a defining moment in terms of starting everything and creating all of the opportunities that we can since then. Another talk about the sense of purpose and being constantly challenged in a career. We also talked about impact as a student and how whether experiences are good or bad, they stay with you. And so the benefit of keeping some of those in mind is, as you talked about fundraising and things, just to remember, everybody didn't have the best experience. And so there might be some work to be done, just describing sort of some of the new things that are happening, some of the changes that are happening to the people.
So only one of us contributed to this question, but to me, it's upward mobility from coming from a lower middle class family to becoming quite affluent. I like it. I like
It
it.
gives you the opportunity to become more philanthropic.
There you go. That's it.
Anybody want to share anything from the back corner?
We were just talking about the education you got here, that we all went and probably still to today, was not only how to think as a lawyer and to use the skill sets that you learn, but also it was a very practical education, at least when I was here, we were here. And that really made a huge difference when you go out in the world and start, practicing. Some people, for example, from other schools I won't mention, wouldn't know what the evidence code was or something like that. And you get right into an argument on some technical evidentiary point because Leo O'Brien or whoever, you had a trial practice clinic where he knocked you all over the place if you didn't know that.
Yeah.
So there's a real practice, not only thinking, but a practical orientation, which was very important, I think, for going to school.
Anybody on Zoom? Either Jennifer's like somebody that looks like Jennifer.
We're both on mute.
Where's the camera? No, I don't think you're looking at the camera.
You.
Where's
The cat wants to say what they think.
Where's the camera? So for.
Focused.
It's, I don't know.
What do you mean?
The he's looking at the slide. That's not gonna,
I'm
they don't know
gonna
they're
send
looking. They don't know they're looking at him.
It's on me, but they should be able to hear me. Either Jennifer wanna weigh in?
There you go.
Hello, this is Jennifer and this is Jake the cat, who's
Hey, Jake.
also very happy that I went to UC Hastings. We talked about, again, similarly why Hastings is meaningful to us and the different ways that we like to still give back to the university. If that was the question, sorry. It's a little bit hard to hear on the Zoom.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Yeah.
See, a couple of people, it was embedded sort of in the answer to the first one. Who wants to weigh in on the third one? What are your 3 to 5 top points of pride that you like to share with people?
I think it's the age of the school. It's the fact that this particular law school really does a lot to educate as lawyers, people from families where the parents never even went to college. That was always a nice, gave me a sense. Not sure if I'm sure I have a third, but I don't know.
So, yeah, I mean, from my standpoint, I remember we had a judges event at my firm, and I was the master of ceremonies, and we didn't have judge from every county, but almost every county. And the first thing I said was, looking out here, I just want to say, and I can tell from the people I've spoken to before I got up here, that the thing about Hastings that's amazing is that it gives you street smarts. It doesn't mean you're a hood, but it means that you know how to deal with people. You know how when somebody's giving you a line, you know when somebody's being sincere. And I think I picked up a ton of that at Hastings. And, looking around, I have a feeling that most of us feel that way. The other thing though is, it wasn't a trade school. Some people talk about Hastings being a trade school. I had a con law course here, and I didn't practice in con law. But since the day of that course, I don't read the newspaper without thinking about compelling state interests. Is this a reasonable alternative? And that, as a way of looking at society, is an amazing thing. And it's intellectual, and I never would have had it had I not had con law. So I like that balance. That is a real point of pride.
Pride in the school, building, physical plant, representation of judges from our school, close to courthouses where they are, which can be prideful, and direction that the school is going. That's my committee.
One thing, being a born and raised Californian, I am very proud of the fact that it was California's first law school. And I'm also very proud of the fact that that it's a public school and that they are making such a great effort to diversify and have a lot of different legal education, a lot of different students, a lot of different opportunities in the curriculum.
We didn't make a list on this one, although I know to say something, but camaraderie, not huge camaraderie because you're in law school and everybody's competitive, but compared to Stanford or Berkeley, where the level of snobbery and competitiveness almost dragged them down to being non-human. The street smarts that John's talking about arises in part from we're all in the same bucket here and doing our best, and you got to be friends with your neighbor. There was the look to your left, look to your right kind of thing when we first got here, but we relied on each other for a lot of support. And you don't see that at a lot of law schools.
Yep.
So I think part of the pride when I went to school here was we're so close to all of the courthouses, as Teresa pointed out earlier. And I remember third year, which my daughter did first year when she went here, how time changes. I got to be an extra at the California Court of Appeal. And that just left such a big impression on me from a practical viewpoint, because I became a trial attorney. And when you're at the Court of Appeal, you've got this bird's eye view of looking what went wrong, the errors made at the trial court. So it kind of made me very excited being around the justices to then get into court and practice. And then my other points of pride are, because I stayed in the area, I get to see all of my peers and friends and classmates when I go into court. You still see them, there's a great camaraderie. And then also on the board, Class of 81 is pretty well represented. And then my other points of pride are more current. Love these buildings that we have, the physical, love what the dean's building in terms of sense of community with all these various clinics, which goes to our mission. We were always a public interest law school that was there to, serve the community and help. And so, I'm teaching in the CNDR, which is very exciting. That's a relatively new clinic as well. So we're creating all those future mediators out there. So I like some of the points of pride are current as well. We didn't talk about this, but I'll just note a couple things for me. One of them is our alumni. I think it's great to have Kamala Harris in the White House. I mean, that's like, wow. And when I was a student, Willie Brown was you know, was like the most prominent alumni that I could think of. And so I always felt very proud of that connection and the work that they do in terms of policy, both at the state level and now at the federal.
So my top point of pride is I received a world-class education. And it changed my way of thinking about the world and about life in general. It was, you know, in that sense, life-changing. But the experience that gave me a great deal of pride was working on the moot court. And I made the somewhat stupid decision to be on the Jessup International Law moot court team, which had the crazy topic of being able to justify why small countries should be able to build nuclear weapons. I'll tell you, that nutty topic taught me to be a very effective advocate. But those, I feel really powerful that, you know, my experience here taught me to be a trial lawyer. And I'm proud of that, and I'm proud of the school.
Either Jennifer.
I would like to say that my current point of pride is that the school changed its name. I was always a big supporter of the name change, and I really think it has shown a lot of leadership. And so that's one of the things I talk about.
Along those lines, does Jennifer?
Oh, yeah, really quickly. I just wanted to quickly say, I think one source of pride for me is the incredible alumni network, and this might have been something that someone may have already talked about. I know that when I was looking for summer internships and jobs and things like that, and that was certainly paved the way for sure. It just has been an incredible resource. I think the other thing that I think to Rob Saul's point, I think we have an incredible faculty, and I don't know if Leo is sitting in the room, but if he has, he was a contracts professor when I was a 1L, and I have friends that unfortunately, I wasn't able to take his class, but I know that people that were in his section raved about him. They adored him. You know, we have a top-notch world-class faculty right now. And so, you know, Rob is absolutely right. It is a world-class education. And so that is something that I think is a point of pride, for me, and something that I one of the reasons why I give and I support. I mean, there are many reasons, but that is something that why and what I'm proud of.
Jennifer, when I was here, Leo was just a good foosball player.
Who knew? So he could clean himself up.
So that leads very nicely into the last one. What would you tell someone? How would you answer the question? Why do you give your time, your talent, and your resources?
My thinking on that has always been, there were 1,650 students crammed into one little building across the street. And one of the reasons that I got involved is to help make the change to provide truly great facilities for these students now that we did not have. We had to find our own living quarters. So I think that's one of the best things we've done.
I was going to say, both points of pride and why I give my time, talent, and treasure is that Hastings has not just survived under, I think, incredible challenges, but it is thriving. And that really is a point of pride. I mean, people in our classes back in the 70s would never have imagined that we would have a campus of the magnitude and magic that we currently And I think that now we really are serving students in a way that they served us well scholastically, but I think the quality of life was difficult. It was very much a commute school. It was all in one building. The building was pretty depressing. And now, now we really have a thriving village. And it's time, you know, it's time to celebrate and to really give back. I mean, it's an institution that has changed, it's resilient, and it has taken a new course. It's very exciting.
So I was a poor kid from Culver City, and my parents paid the $700, I recall, a year, and very modest. I was lucky they paid for the apartment. And then when I got involved on this board was around 2009, I think, 2010. And I learned that, you know, tuition is almost like a private school now. It's up to what, 48,500 or something like that. And I want to help other students be able to go to law school here that wouldn't ordinarily come. I mean, we're now, I'm very excited. We are now 60% people of color, I believe, and maybe 64% women are going that direction. And so I just feel it's, you know, giving back is always something that I've learned in my culture. When you're Jewish, it's called tzedakah, and you give back. And so I want to help other students do that. And so with the amount of tuition, and then they also have to pay room and board, so you're looking at almost double that amount. I think we have to do all we can do to help other students go here. And then of course, an added bonus is it's such a beautiful place now with so many clinics and opportunities. That's just a bonus.
So I would say 2 points that are kind of you know, they don't hit squarely in the center of this question, but so I found the school to be a place where I can make a difference and a place that can make a difference for me. So, and I'll unpack those two. So in terms of where I can make a difference, I get hit up for a lot of different stuff in terms of donations and things like that, my time. And there are a lot of organizations that are too huge to really get much out of what I can give them. Whereas this is a place where I have a personal connection and I find different ways to help because I'm directly interested in what's going on here. I already have a network of people that I know and am committed to. So that's kind of how I can make a difference. And then in terms of making a difference for me, you know, I talk to a lot of people who are lawyers that are, you know, mid-level associates, junior partners, and they want to get involved in something and they immediately think, oh, I'm going to join the ABA or something like that. And it astounds me that they don't realize they have a much tighter network here if they got involved in it with just as prominent of practitioners that would actually give them the time of day and take them under their wing and actually bring them up into positions of leadership versus going into this vast ocean of people that you have no connection with. So those are 2 reasons why I joined.
Great point. We've got just a few more slides and one more exercise. And then I think at the end, Eric, you have some very specific ways that this group can remain and get even more deeply involved. So if you think of sort of 4 traditional board roles as it relates to philanthropy, not everybody is comfortable or effective at being a solicitor, but some are. So that's one category. There's another category called a convener, another called a bridge builder, and another called an ambassador. So let's look at some characteristics of each one of those. So a convener, ways to be involved in being a convener are to host an event.
Next slide, Dennis.
Yeah. Yeah, so a convener can host an event, promote events that you're not hosting, but that the school is sponsoring, extend personal invitations for private meetings with David, with other leadership, other stakeholders, And there are other ways. Those are just some examples. And maybe that's where you feel like you can be the most effective and also the most comfortable. A bridge builder. We need people who can participate in and are willing and able to participate in ongoing management of these relationships. And that can include thanking first-time donors. I know Eric's been spending, the team have been spending some time on trying to understand what happens to donors who have made a gift in the past, but at some point their giving has lapsed. Maybe that's a role for you as a bridge builder. Re-engage with people who perhaps were on this board or another board at one time, but are no longer a part of that. And again, just some examples of ways you can be a bridge builder. An ambassador, the school needs representatives in the community, and some of you are doing that and quite effectively. But there's an opportunity to do what we were just talking about, share your experience as a donor, volunteer, promote the mission, stay informed of what's going on. Make a gift commitment that's significant based on financial ability. You know, the reason we did that exercise a while ago is, and I hope you learned something from your colleagues, could you see yourself in a one-on-one setting with someone, sharing some of those experiences, impressions, ways to get involved, reasons to get involved? That's the reason that we did that. And then finally, solicitor. If you're comfortable and feel effective in doing that, some ways to do that is helping secure a meeting. That may be maybe easier for you to help secure a meeting, whether you end up being the actual solicitor or not. Maybe it's a case where you can get the meeting arranged, and Eric is the one going to come in and actually make the ask. But maybe there's a role for you in being the solicitor. Here's your opportunity to share your as a donor, and either asking or being in support of the ask.
So can I interrupt and say, for Sharon's benefit, this is sort of how we've broken down the fundraising committee among our trustees, some of whom want to host an event. That's their strength. Some who are going to phone other people, and others who are, what's our third one? Which are your bridge builders and ambassadors, or conveners, I'm sorry, conveners. So we sort of broken it down along some of these lines, so maybe you had that in the back of your head when.
Those are some of the next slides.
Not yet. So we won't take as long as we did last time in the interest of time, but back in your groups, talk with one another and just share how you feel personally, which one of those, and maybe it's more than one, but talk about how you feel like you can be most effective in one or more of these four roles. So take about 5 minutes, and then we'll continue on and get wrapped up.
What happened?
I'm terrible.
She's coming from a lot.
I mean, it's depends on the person. I feel like, as I recall,
It's clear what those. How does a bridge building
I also have trouble.
I find if I start talking to somebody.
I have what I call wallflower personality. To talk to people.
like ambassador.
Maybe even that very call.
Other volunteers.
I can be very engaged. I don't know if I'm charming, but I can be very.
Some of them.
I mean, I think there's a lot of overlap. I mean, I'm like the
There's
network.
a room of potential donors.
I connect people. That's my pride. And I really didn't know that I was.
Yeah, the solicitors.
It made me think that I can't remember.
Because then you tell.
It's hard checking in on, what you thought about your education.
Myself, I would say I'm probably, I'm better at gathering together.
I'm terrible at that.
And especially.
But I guess that's part of the education.
Part of it though, as a lawyer,
Although I assign somebody else to be so, but watching
it's every time.
So I'll call you next week.
Okay, every time I lost a case, it took me months to recover.
When I thought I'd actually.
Somebody go there, they say no, I think it's.
They've already made their commitment. And I'm not good at that. That's kind of the chicken. way it happens. I can call me a chicken. I didn't come here to be insulted by you. Okay.
Once you get going on it, you go, oh my.
It's funny. That both of us had active roles.
To show them.
But anyway, I was.
I don't, but you would also be good.
I'm not sure what you said about saying.
I mean, you can bring in other people to help or whatever, but.
So that's three of them. Yeah, there's a representative in my class too. I mean, I didn't grow up in California, so from people who grew up in California, they say.
Well, I mean, if it's in person.
Was almost free.
Yeah.
I can host an event. My taxes, I'm not interested in paying more than my taxes.
Yeah, that's, and it's true. I mean, Berkeley was $100.
Yeah.
Because Berkeley had a reputation.
Yeah.
Without having to make
I guess I still have some time.
You do, and hey, I'll nominate you, it'll help. Yeah, so, you know what, I think your point's a good one, though, because. Let's just paste this here, show them this.
Which one are you choosing, number 4? She's asking, she's pushing me. Break out.
You know, and see, so,
That's funny.
I played each of those.
I can't see. So, right?
But, most of
You know what I almost said?
And when you were missing so much.
yes,
like, I don't understand what that means.
You know what I almost said when they said what practice you give?
I remember.
that, I was gonna say that too, because when I was very relatively junior, I gave like what I thought was a assessment, and it was. I was honest, they asked me for a report.
Because a lot of people didn't have that experience with something like that.
Right.
Sure. Well, that was your experience with the academic, because we made the same with the better and still please come see how the campus looks. Because everybody wants to be associated with somewhere that's.
We talk once every 2 years when one of our classmates dies,
I wasn't interested in going back to something else, and having an isolated experience with a bunch of undergraduates. I wanted to go someplace where people knew what they were talking about, and I was gonna know what I was doing. And Hastings,
This is it.
But I also didn't know any different. I didn't go. No, that's just in general. I didn't look at anywhere. I just knew I wanted to come to the institution. And I just.
Okay, so.
I mean,
yeah.
I know. Well, sometimes it's Eve, his wife. Yeah. And sometimes it's his wife, Jamie's brother. Yeah, his wife, Jamie's brother. You know what? 7, 8, was here, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
So where am I? Where are my solicitors? Who thinks they can be an effective solicitor? Okay,
Sorry.
All right, John.
talk about it a bit.
Well, I mean, I've been lucky enough to work for a couple of nonprofits. The food bank was one of them. And I was on the food bank for the combined, the Reed and San Francisco combined. So we had to solicit the Marin Food Bank to join the San Francisco Food Bank. So that was a big solicitation. But more importantly, when you would talk to people, it was pretty easy to believe in the food bank. At that point, for every dollar somebody donated, there was between $5 and $10 of food that was distributed. And so anyone can understand that. And of course, they knew that if you were calling them, and you would say, oh, I'm on board of the food bank, I'm calling because you've been contributing. And so they knew that you were a contributor. And so asking them to renew a contribution or make a contribution was, you can't say it's relatively easy because you can still get rejected and nobody likes to get rejected, but it was something that felt natural because, like they say, if you believe in what you're asking about, it's simple to ask somebody to join you.
So you feel like you could be effective because you've had some success doing it? Yeah. You think you could be?
Yes, I've been on a couple of boards as well. And I think we were just talking about it. If you believe in the cause enough that we're all here on a Saturday, although the food's good, the company's really great, and the speaker. So I think one of your earlier slides was, why are you giving your talent, your time, your energy? And so I always feel that if I can do that, and we could give our pledges, and some of us, have given for the building fund or scholarship, then it's easy to ask somebody else. What's hard was, I was telling Basil, when I first joined, I went to an event at his house, and this one woman was really negative about her experience here. I think she just might be a negative person.
Yeah,
I remember.
she is.
And, yeah. And we were talking about being in that one building. And of course, the positive some of us have brought out was that one building gave us a chance to really focus on studying the law and getting to know everybody. And it was a positive, maybe. But now, if I have such a negative person, if I was doing a soliciting, I could say, we still excel at academics, but would you please come for a tour and see how gorgeous our new buildings are? So, we're in a win-win with soliciting. Made our job easy.
I'm not a natural solicitor, but I think the answer to the question, can you be a solicitor here, is it depends.
Yeah.
It depends sort of on, do you know who you're calling, or is this a stranger? How well do you know the person you're calling if it's not a stranger? Are you naturally a wallflower? Talk to people you don't know all the time. It also depends on things like how much information do you have? So I'll freely admit that I used to do fundraising for a large university South Peninsula, and I stopped doing it because they have billions and I don't. And so why do I want to, raise money for them anymore? But that are highly paid and staffed, and so you get a sheet that they mail you, and this is pre-email, they mail you and it says everything about your prospect. Bob Agnew has 6 pieces of property, and I talked to Bob last September 3rd, and he said he'd look forward to hearing from people. And Bob comes to every Stanford football game since 1962, and on and on and on. And so everything about the person. Sure, I'll pick up the phone and say, hey, Bob, this is Tom. You may not remember me, but because I have this sheet in front of me with all this information. We don't have that kind of professional staff. We can't. I mean, it's impossible to have the kind of resources they have. So the answer sort of is, it depends. It depends on who you are, who they are, and how much information you have before you call.
Who feels like their highest and best and most effective use is to be a convener? Okay. Either talk about that.
Party planner.
Party planner.
I say, I'm really comfortable bringing people together.
Okay.
And talking to people and sort of general, it's when you get to, and could you give us $1 million? I don't feel I'm good at that.
Okay.
Well, so can you specify the difference between the convener and the bridge builder? I feel like
Yeah.
some of these rules.
Yeah, there's some definite crossover.
Could you show us the
Convener,
definitions again?
Eric, could you go back to, yeah, so convener, events, that was one thing. Either hosting them yourself or promoting, encouraging attendance at events that the school sponsor itself. Extending personal invitations to get involved, maybe in personal meetings, so that would be a convener. And then a bridge builder, and there's some crossover there, but it does involve, and could involve some personal interaction with either donors or past donors, or past volunteers. Ambassadors.
I think everybody's ambassador.
Right,
Yeah.
kind of by definition
That's our
of being a part of
job.
this board.
Can you go back to the slide that describes ambassador? Yeah, but that's almost the easiest thing to do because it doesn't put you on the spot. It doesn't put them on the spot. It's just an opportunity to ramble on about wonderful things, kind of.
So we got at these through our exercises, right? So I hope now you have in your minds some things that you could share with people, or maybe you learned from a colleague, some ideas that you could bring forth in a one-on-one conversation with someone. Talking about getting people to a higher level, that gets back to understanding what all the different ways there are to make a gift. And maybe if someone combines a 5-year pledge with also putting the college in their estate plan, bingo, that's created a higher gift amount than they might have thought about to begin with. And then who to talk to, Eric's about to talk about some of that, so I'll toss it to him for the remainder.
Yeah, this is quick and this is more of a discussion, but Tom kind of touched on this already. So taking into account the questions that Dennis posed to you all and the conversations you had, how does that then kind of funnel into practice? And so I just kind of outlined up here the 3 things that you talked about at our meeting earlier. And again, about how your position as a foundation board member and these conversations you've just had kind of feed into the 3 priorities that we have as a board. Class agent program, again, is that broad engagement. And then again, I believe that once we get this going and people are participating, you're gonna strike new connections, you're gonna meet new people, and those relationships, maybe they then kind of take that turn into cultivation. And then again, you're talking with me or Liz or a member of our team about potential new major gift prospects. Top 10, I call them high capacity prospect outreach. Again, very applicable to what we've just been talking about in the conversations you've been having, some of the techniques. But making that an initial contact with high capacity prospects with whom we've not been connected. And again, leveraging your position as a board member. And if we have information about them that is useful to you, then we will share that with you for sure. A lot of these people though aren't gonna have been connected with the school. Some of them may, but we can, Tom, include any information that would be helpful in an initial outreach. And then event hosting, again, Dennis calls these salon events, or like, very kind of like high level kind of targeted events. So we would work with any event host or co-hosts on looking at potential invitees, focusing on, sorry, just those who have, you know, the greatest capacity to impact the school and specifically the campaign. We can talk about bringing in faculty member. Of course, David is always, well, if his calendar permits, but willing and excited to participate in events, but we can think beyond David. You know, so again, these are just the current initiatives that we're focused on. So I don't know if there's any additional discussion that you all want to have, but that was, you know, the one component about, again, the very specific ways that we're partnering with you and the board. Yeah, Tom?
I have a question sort of about the interrelationship of program 1 and 2, which is in the class agent program, developing these new relationships is sort of closely related to the idea of reaching out.
Yes and no, because the second one is folks that we know have significant capacity, and we're giving them to you because we know that, and we're asking you to, again, I keep saying this, but I think it's something that maybe we don't do enough of, leveraging your position as a board member to try and initiate contact and an initial conversation with those people.
So
the class agent program, that second bullet point, is a potential byproduct of the effort.
So the second one has a target.
Yes.
The first one doesn't. The first one
That's
is more-
exactly right.
Right.
Okay.
But Eric, on the second one, I mean, information as to how you and your office identified these people would be helpful.
Yeah, I mean,
You know, right, why do you think this person may be a potential giver?
well, we don't. That's part of the process is, are they a potential giver?
Well, but you've identified them based on something.
We've identified them based on their wealth capacity.
You can submit, and they do, and we help with this, you can submit your entire file to a wealth screening service. It's external to the school. And it's based on a lot of different factors that are publicly available.
Right.
What property do you own, things like that. And then our analytics team applied a connection score to each individual record. And so that's things that are in the database already, behaviors that you do, like giving, like being on boards, like attending events. And so you accumulate points for how connected you appear to be. And so the two things combined, the wealth estimates with the connection, produce what we call the strike zone. And that's the ones that you need to pay the most attention to early on. And so, but it's not perfect. It's not perfect.
That's the value in your outreach is you call 10 people and maybe you talk to 5 of them.
Right.
And then maybe 4 of them say, leave me alone. But one of them says, thanks for the call. I'm really interested in learning more. That's success. Because
yeah, but I guess what I'm thinking of in the due diligence you conduct, you do get information about that's publicly available. Let's say this person is a huge contributor to Harvard University where they went. So you know this is a person who may be interested in supporting educational institutions. I mean, that would be a helpful piece of information. But I don't know if you have that granularity.
I think her question is that, do you give us the information? Before we
Right.
call
give you
them?
all the information that we have, but we may not have
Okay,
them.
that's what I was wondering.
Have these people ever given? Have they given maybe once or twice?
I mean, most likely based on being in the strike zone, but that's also information that we can give you. That we can give you like a most recent gift date, can tell you how many times they've given, things like that.
Because that's a huge piece, isn't it? Because if they've given in the past, even if it's a modest amount, that's sort of, and yet they're within the strike zone or there's some wealth or some other attributes, then you have an in sort of, they say you've given before.
Yeah, but I want to be really careful about how you address that. I think a lot of people react to
Yeah.
privacy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's background
Yeah.
information. It's not information to tell them that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I
It's
agree
not
with
like
that.
we data mine what you own.
That's all
Yeah.
information.
I agree with that.
The conversation that the ideal conversation is, hi, my name's Tom Getty, class 81. I'm the president of the foundation board. We've launched a new initiative where we're contacting alums to just touch base and try to activate our community. It's now a good time to have a quick conversation.
I don't think people will be offended if you said we're contacting past donors either. I mean, just the fact, everybody always knows who gave them money. So if you just made it a general.
I'd like to
Yeah, I mean, I
thank
guess my
past
question is, if
support.
you address them as a past supporter or not, does that feel like influence the type of conversation?
profile
you're having?
Maybe past supporter alone is not a problem. but
Yeah, right,
I'd be
exactly.
careful about how much information you provide.
Yeah.
Right.
I know a ton
I
about this.
still live at.
Yeah.
I know about all of you.
How are your two cats doing?
I got Robin to tell me how much they had me down for.
No,
It just blew me away.
What did you do?
Alexa knows.
Yeah,
the
were you
drill.
worried?
Yeah. Alexa's an expert in this area, so let's listen to Alexa.
Yes,
You know, I just wanted to say, don't stress about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like that's, at the end of the day, it's not really about what you say, it's the fact that you called and you just engage with them. And just remember to listen, like that's the whole thing. Just let them know who you are, mentioning that you're from the foundation board and that it's a fundraising organization is enough. They'll know it's a call about fundraising. And then I would just let people just hear what they have to say. And then that's intelligence. Bring it back to Eric and his team, and then they can run with that.
And a
So
lot of
don't
people
feel
are gonna have a
like
lot
too
to
much
say.
pressure.
I gotta tell you, so
That's good
I was at Sedgwick.
Great, Alexa, thanks.
I was at Sedgwick for 34 years before it died. Now I'm with a small boutique, but I was a team captain. So I was a solicitor then. I was terrible at it and they were terrible at responding. Most of them were of the age where they didn't have a good time there. And I didn't have as good of a spiel. The little boutique, we have 5 of us, so we qualified. And I said, I don't care how much, if all of us do it, we'll get us a prize. But so I got myself a little like that. But it's hard when of the people our age. So it's gonna be harder if you get, and they're the ones with the money.
I want to reinforce what Alexa said. I mean, I think approach this from the perspective of you're having a conversation about UC Law San Francisco. Don't worry about the money, don't worry about asking for a gift. And I think you're right. I mean, people are going to want to engage for the most part, and people always want to share feedback and want to share their opinions and want to talk about their feelings. And for a lot of people who've never been contacted or haven't been contacted in a long time, there's probably going to be a lot to share.
And like Dennis said, it's 80% listening.
Yeah.
Sometimes
And
more
if
than
you
that.
have
With all the
to
cell
talk-
phones now, like, I never answer a call that I don't recognize.
Yeah,
So
leave a-
that's
there- there are-
basically just leave voicemails for
You leave a
everyone.
voicemail,
And if
I
they
mean,
call
there
you
are
back, they call you
workarounds.
back. Yeah.
What some things you can do is you can email someone, introduce yourself. I'd love to set up a time to chat. I mean, again, more often than not, you're probably not gonna get a response. That's just the nature of the game. It's a numbers game. I mean, when you get down to
everyone
it.
goes, oh, she's gonna ask me for money. I'm not calling her back.
Right.
Fine, then that's okay.
Yeah, but you could be offering her a tour.
No,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was gonna say, I think
know
the
that.
main thing to talk to people about is gonna be all the new things that are happening at the school. Cause I think most people just are not really following and are not aware of all the new buildings and all the movement and all the excitement. And I think that's all you need to know, is just be ready to tell them, about the new buildings and some of the new initiatives and the new, different centers and programs. I think just hearing that it's dynamic, that it's moving is exciting, or hopefully will be exciting or at least interesting to people. But I think that's all the facts you need to have.
Well,
That's
Alexa,
great.
to your point too, it's not necessarily just if they want to make a gift. Do they want to come back to campus? Do they want to get coffee with you so they can vent about who knows what? But it matters that you're reaching out. It's very different than when we reach out. Because you are a
Your
colleague,
peers.
you are a peer, it means something different. And they might want to be a mentor. They might say, hey, look, I'm not in a place to give you any money. Please don't talk to me about money. But I will, mentor students or help look at resumes or whatever. So That's a win too.
And that turns into something. I mean, when we look at our fellow trustee, Mike Whippler, right? He was a mentor and, and now look at what he's doing, and it turns into things, and it's about building that relationship and getting that whole thing, the whole ball rolling, right?
No, Phil wanted to.
This is a little off base, but I think it sort of keeps the fear of asking. But I remember ahead of our trial group, we're talking to a lot of senior, associates, partners, and they had some senior partners there. And they were talking about how to get clients, and you had them. We were in downtown Philadelphia. We were told to go to certain bars and restaurants and just go in and start talking to people about legal problems and what legal problems they have, and that's the thing. So just totally like crazy, He said we had to clear conflicts, and obviously we picked up 3 clients on that exercise. The point of the matter is the fear of asking is what inhibits it. And the chairman was trying to say, if you don't ask, you're never going to get it.
Yeah.
So you might bat at 100 or 200, but once you start doing it, then you get a lot better at it.
So Alexa,
And I
just real
just
quick.
wanted to highlight, it's a long game, right?
Yes.
We saw the timeline for the campaign. It's happening for a while. So warming people up, calling them, leaving a message is starting the process. It may take people, it may take 6 months before you actually talk to that person, for example, but that's still plenty of time for them to make a big gift, right? At the end. So you just kind of, again, I guess I just want to say, don't feel stressed. This is actually not a stressful exercise. This is very, you're contacting people, you'll be making people feel good to hear from you. That's kind of it.
Consider the excitement that I can tell all of you are feeling about what's happening, the direction we're heading. You want to share that excitement with someone who's a peer. I mean, so that should also, I think, if you go in with that mindset, take a little bit of that reluctance or that pressure off, and you just want to share that excitement that you have with others, because you want them to experience that same feeling you're having. You're trying to present that opportunity to bring them in so that they can join you in feeling that same way. So, Judy?
So, Eric, can you guys, if we were gonna do an event, can you guys give us like some of those people that might be good to attend?
Yeah, that's one of the things that we would do if someone wanted to host an event, then we would meet with the event host or co-host, review a list of potential invitees, be very, very intentional about who we're inviting, who's inviting whom, so it might make sense for some of the board members to invite people. Maybe David needs to invite a couple people, we're inviting people. So yeah, in that case, for those types of events, it's very granular in terms of who's being invited, all the way down to who's inviting whom and all that. Yeah.
So can I just say thank you, because I've learned a lot from all of you, just listening to how we can answer this question differently. And I'm freezing, so I'm gonna probably duck out. But before I did, I wondered if all of us wouldn't mind going up there, and I want to get Rob in the middle.
Yeah.
Thank you. Kind of go up there, everybody.
Deborah's been
The
doing
quad or the sky deck?
Just right here.
Oh, right
Go to
here.
the front.
Okay.
If we go to the sky deck, I'm afraid I'll lose everyone.
Oh, thank you.
I'll take the photo.
Yeah, but you just I'll go around Jennifer.
Thanks, everybody. That was a great session. Thank you, Dennis. Good job.
That's why I was like,
I think
okay.
you're gonna do great. I think all of us are sure. Don't stress about it. Don't stress about it. You're just starting the conversation.
That'd be take a long time to get everybody up there.
Good advice.
Come on, our people, help me grab the phone.
Very excited.
Thanks, everybody.
Get Larry.
I think Dana left.
All right.
I am, Robin said she's posting something. Yeah, I am. I'm gonna do a little announcement about how thankful I am to have been with all of you.
Yeah, you have to.
Right in the middle.
Okay, right.
Yeah,
Yeah, don't forget to.
make room for Jennifer.
It's still tall enough for me to stand in front of him and you can still see him.
Am I in front? I'm in front.
Perfect.
Okay, everybody look here. 1, 2, 3. Again.
Yeah.
Again. Again. All right.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Miss you I know, I actually my friend is asking if I can, yeah, it would be really nice to see you all, yeah. I was just.
Email you another copy.
And then guys can I'll try to do that, I'll really help you.
Thank you for.
You're doing great, I know, miss you all too. Thank you. Not this much right now. Yeah, yeah. Oh, really? Yeah. Realizing that me like, yeah. John.
All right. What are you?
Well, you have been asking. David, Sue, and I were thinking, I love we are, we're trying to figure out.
Secession.
So I'm the one. I will let you know. Nice meeting you.
All right, my friend.
Yes, sir. Can see.